Buenas noches and welcome to the People's House, the Guam Congress Hall, in our public hearing room as we get ready to conduct this oversight hearing conducted by the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts, and we're hereby called to order at 5:37 Chamorro Standard Time. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on July 11, 2024, with a second notice provided on July 16, 2024. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notices portal. This evening, the committee is holding an oversight hearing on the Guam Department of Education with the following items on the agenda: Typhoon Mawar recovery project status, school break-ins, refurbishment contract status and information, status of AC installation, status of George Washington High School Gym AC installation, status of the DOE financial audit to include status of corrective action plan implementation, Temporary Simon Sanchez campus update, School Consolidation and Closure update, Public Health School Sanitation compliance for school year 25-26, DOE's new specific conditions relative to the high risk status, Federal Funds ESF ARP update with the balance and status of request approvals, indirect cost fund expenditures, job fair results, School Aide recruitment, and at the end of our oversight agenda, we'll allow an opportunity for public comment for anybody who wants to provide comment. I'd like to welcome the Guam Department of Education management team and, of course, thank them for joining us. And before we begin, I'd like to go over the general rules of conduct. There's no hair pulling, eye thumbing. Just kidding. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal from a hearing any member of Iles Latour and Guahan who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 37th Guam Legislature's standing rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in the removal from the hearing by the host. We'll now proceed with the oversight hearing. Good evening, Superintendent Swanson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and you've already exempted yourself from the hair pulling part. That's
safety precautions.
Safety there.
Right on. So I know you have your usual presentation, and for this hearing, we will let you run through the entire presentation before we get to the questions. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to swear in the whole crew.
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead, and if we could, if you all want to just swear in case you come up and provide a testimony, our Sergeant-at-Arms, Ed Bakaigui, will now swear in those present and who plan to testify.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, Mr. Chair, you're under oath.
Si dus masi, Sarge. Okay, Superintendent Swanson, you may begin with your presentation.
Okay, can we have the first slide up, please? Well, we'll go through the first few right away. Then, of course, the next one is got my name on it, so we know who I am. The next slide. And the third one is a restatement of the agenda. And that said, we'll get into the discussion. The Typhoon Mawar recovery. GDOE has 32 projects in the FEMA grant portal. The cumulative total for all the projects is estimated at $24.1 million. And the amount will change with FEMA's ruling, so we don't know the exact outcome of that yet. 38 projects are pending FEMA review at an estimated value of $22.8 million. That includes most of our school sites, the Head Start classrooms, and the PD warehouse. Damages in these projects are in combination of content, equipment, structures, and playground facilities. Next slide. Projects have been obligated for the through the Guam Recovery Office for GDOE to begin requesting reimbursement. We have already obligated $395,443.16 that we can request up to 90% or $355,000 for a project to be reimbursed. GDO's Category B emergency protection measures project that includes emergency supplemental materials and GDOE employees, straight time, overtime, and nighttime differential and holiday pay for hours worked during emergency situation. That's already been claimed, but is yet to be totally verified. Next slide. Okay. Collaboration between GDOE and GSA is improved to get the mold mitigation and fence gate installation projects moving forward. Mold mitigation project has been completed in GDO's our procurement team and is now being reviewed by our legal office. The fence and gate installation project has been packaged and is pending solicitation. Debris removal, which is mostly trees, some very large ones. Most of the debris has been removed from the school sites. After Typhoon Mawar, the department is doing one last sweep of any downed trees and debris that was not accounted for on the first round in this time a year ago. Upi Elementary School remains to have the US Ed approval for repair of the office area of the school. The quote's already been attained. We're just waiting for the final okay to use the funds that we have to do that repair work. Going to school break-ins, we've seen a significant uptick in break-ins. The table that's in the slide, the right-hand side is 2023, the calendar years we're talking about here, and then left side is 2024. And you can see, for example, that last year Finnegajan had 1. This year they've had 52. Unfortunately, the folks that have been responsible for at least a large number of those are now in custody, so that'll help there. But our conversations with law enforcement lead us to believe, too, that many of the folks that have been involved in this kind of activity are involved in the drug trade. What we've had stolen is things that have street value that can be sold, and also food. So we know we have people that are hungry and looking for cash. The increase from last year to this year has been 32% as of today. Finnegajan Elementary, GW High School, Benavente Middle School are in the high break-in rate, and we currently have 3 main entrance crews repairing downed and damaged fences at Simon Sanchez and FB. And as soon as we repair them, we come back the next day and they've been cut. So there's quite an emphasis on right now, especially at the FBLG site. We had quite a bit of material stolen from the contractor. He's taking care of his materials, and now we're having people come in and pull cable out at night to take the copper for salvage. So we're in the process of working up a boots-on-the-ground security contract for those 3 campuses so that we can secure it. In addition, we've also coordinated to have increased police patrol during nighttime hours. We have located a previous contract that was back in 2014 for police protection for the similar kind of activity that was happening then, and we're looking at rebidding that with a specification. That one calls for armed guards. I don't know that we want to do that, but we certainly want to have on-site security. Next slide. Refurbishment contracts. The status, we'll start with this, air conditioning. J&B Modern has installed 1,103 air conditioners as of June 6th. The total bid package is for 2,588 units to be placed in all the schools. 20 schools were awarded to J&B, and they're in the second round of installation. The philosophy was to start the first round, get at least 1 operational air conditioner in every classroom. Many of the classrooms, because of size, require 2, and now we're starting into putting those second units in. 8 schools are completely done. 6 schools have about 2 to 5 additional units to be installed, And there are 6 schools that have ongoing installation. These are ones that have the larger 5, 10, and 15-ton units. Those units are now on island so that they can be installed. A total of 1,346 will be installed upon completion of the 20 schools. The remaining 1,206 to be reinstalled before the end of the contract, and all regions are currently on their second round. And repair of damaged ducts from the typhoon will be an ongoing process because we have a number of schools that have damaged ductwork in addition to non-functional units. Next slide. The questionnaire for George Washington High School. Structural repair and interior painting of the GW gym has been completed. The picture there reflects that for us. 2 package units have already been installed and are operational. There are 2 other units that have been installed and they're pending installation of new ductwork. So we'll be, and they've already been sanitized so we don't have 2 or 3 years of collected dust and whatever other debris was in the ducts while the gym was shut down. Next slide. This is with regard to the student laptop purchase. As you recall and remember, we had the audit that was published a few months back, and there were 2 steps that we needed to take in conjunction and agreement with the public auditor. One was to develop an implementation SOP, and the other was to correct procurement processes. The new SOP has been written and developed and is adopted, and we've scheduled training for all of our staff so that they understand exactly how to do the property accountability and the inventory process. And the distribution has been completed. All of the units are out in schools. Inventory tracking is in place. This has been done in conjunction also with the US Ed work on coming out of the high risk category. So that's all part of the same process. I am following up with the inventory tracking to be sure that we have a properly accounted for. Of course, we know that Finnegaja, we lost a number of computers in burglaries, but many of those have been recovered. So we are still in the process of cleaning up that inventory work, but the inventory process is now a lot tighter than it was before. So let's go to the next slide. We got all the way to the financial audit. We're out of order. Okay. I'll skip and we'll leave that one up. Maybe I jumped a slide. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, the financial audit. Okay, Ernst & Young, LLP is our contracted auditor. They're conducting right now the fiscal year 23 financial in a single audit. The GDOE internal audit office and the Office of the Public Auditor are maintaining oversight of this audit and the process and its pace. The late close of fiscal year 23 accounts caused a delay in the beginning of the audit progress. Ernst & Young are fully engaged and anticipate completing the audit by the end of September with a net fund balance of $1.8 million. We are meeting at least monthly, sometimes twice a month with the public auditor, keeping track of this process and keeping it on track. We have changed policies and rewritten procedures so that our closeout and monitoring should prevent late audits in the future. Next slide. That was the laptop purchase. I'm sorry I jumped out of order, but that information hasn't changed. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Updated Temporary Simon Sanchez campus. The sequence that's been going on, as you recall, my priority is to get our students that are doubled up in double session back in the Simon Sanchez students into their own environment on a temporary basis while the new school is being built, and restore the full schedule for both student bodies. So May 31st, we're collaborating with the Office of the Governor of Guam and submitted additional information For the governor's authorized representative to formally submit requests to the extension of our FEMA opportunity for reimbursement. June 14th, an additional information and based on feedback from FEMA was provided clarification for the two main presented items, leasing a facility or constructing temporary modular classrooms near the Simon Sanchez campus on public housing office land. So those are the two options we're looking at. We're still working through the details of this. So July 19th, the Office of the Governor hosted a status update meeting with FEMA. Currently, we are collaborating with the Office of the Governor and the Governor's Recovery Office to address the additional concerns and future outlined options. Those two options are the same. Currently, GDOE is collaborating with those. Operation Leasing is the Office of Government of Guam is coordinating with the Tumon Bay Mall to determine a breakdown of costs for the estimated $5 million a year. DPW is also working to determine any additional costs that might be needed to retrofit that structure. That's half of the process. The other half is the GDOE's work with identifying what can be done for the temporary campus in addition to retrofitting existing classrooms at Simon Sanchez, to also continue to conduct market research and potential vendors for two things: a study to do the site preparation, the other is to actually purchase prefabricated structures. We have estimates from one vendor, but we need 2 or 3 more to satisfy procurement needs. In that model, we would have to bring on approximately 50 classroom units plus renovate the housing units that are there to house smaller parts of the school operations, such as administrators' offices, counselors' offices, nurses' facilities, and such. We have an estimate for site preparation for the ground for 50 units. It would be about $1.2 million to prepare the site, and so we're still working through both of those. We're working with the Guam Recovery Office to schedule follow-up meetings with FEMA to present those additional findings, along with others that are still in research, to get down to understanding which of the two options are the most affordable and will be supported by FEMA for reimbursement. Yeah, that next slide. And there we have the breakout of the amounts of money, the estimate and civil engineering work that has to be done yet. So moving on into the consolidated closure, next slide. The Guam Education Board determined to begin considering actions in January of 2025 for the 25-26 school year. So we are operational with the concurrent configuration that we have, the same number of schools. GDO, the internal study group, has prepared potential recommendations for the board, but we still need to do stakeholder input around those recommendations, and that work is to be done in August and September of this year, to sit with communities, with mayors, PTOs, and stakeholders that are involved to decide what their input is and understand the best way forward. The sanitation compliance. This first slide is reflects the results of internal examination of our facilities. We have our folks use the same checklist that public health does. So these are schools that are yet to be inspected. And in the far right column, you'll see the tentative dates that those schools will be inspected. We closed down all the double session schools except for Simon Sanchez and JFK, and then FBLG and Ukadu High School. They will be in double session. The next chart is the one that I really want to look at, because I want to stress the fact that we have had 19 schools pass their inspection. And you see the scores just to the right of that beige column, and then the far right is the letter grade. But the most recent one that we have the official results on is Liguan Elementary. Tomorrow we will finish the inspection for Harry Truman, and then Maria Ujola will be finished in sometime next week. So we'll probably have 2 more added to the list of completed inspections by the end of July, and step on into the next set as we go forward. When you consider the number of schools that are going to be refurbished and subtract them out, we're down to having about 8 schools that we still have to get inspected. And then we have to start the cycle of re-inspecting the ones that passed last year. So we're keeping an emphasis on that. We have our maintenance team split so that they're working the northern and southern halves of the system at the same time, and then also providing assistance as the inspection team goes through, so that they make, if there are any corrections that can be made on site, they're making them as they go. That partnership with public health has been very effective and really a positive experience for everybody. Going back to the next slide, high risk, okay, that particular slide shows the schools that are next to be inspected. So we're working about 6 weeks out ahead of the inspection, so that then by the time that the team comes to do the inspection, the building's ready to go. Next slide. Okay, the high-risk status. We're working closely with the U.S. Department of Education. This is the whole process of coming out of the third-party fiduciary agent. And as you're aware, the Department of Education gave us a list of further task lists that they wanted us to accomplish by the end of this year, and we're on track to do that. And the key parts for new specific conditions that were actually outlined in their memorandum from June was that the requirements is that we work with our internal audit office, which replaced the third-party fiduciary agent. So that's an independent audit office that reports directly to the board, and then with the Office of the Public Accountant as well, to do periodic audits. So that is not only the audits that we do annually, but the select particular aspects of the operation to go in and audit as well. GDOE is also expected to use funds for allowable costs. In years past, there have been some questionable costs, and so we wanted to make sure that there are no more of those. And then charge its grants only for obligations made during the grant period. That was one of the things that was a challenge before, is that the grant period ran out and charges were still being made against the grant. So then we also have to establish and maintain an effective process for employee time tracking. So this is basically moving us from specifically for federally funded employees, so that we move from a paper and pencil timekeeping to a digital one. And we have a pilot program in operation right now that we're evaluating software to do that work. And GDOE has to accept or reject goods and services within 24 hours to invoice for payments. As you know, challenging, the system has had a challenge in its reputation about timeliness of payment, and this is a direct effort to change that to be as quick and efficient as possible. And then ensure property management procedures are in compliance with federal regulations. As I said before, that SOP has been redone and is implemented, and we're already on top of that. But the challenge then is for us to complete that within this year and apply for reconsideration. So we still have to go back, prove to U.S. Department of Education that we're doing these things successfully. They are tracking that with us. We meet with them at least monthly. And Christine Jackson, whom you met when she was here, I chat with her about once a week to make sure that we're speaking the same language and on track, and we're definitely moving in the right direction with that. Next slide. This is to do with all of the COVID-related funds, the ESF and ARP balances. ESF 1 is completely closed out. That grant was $41.5 million, and we expended all of the funds. There's a zero balance. ESF 2, we still have $6.2 million in late liquidation to be accomplished out of a $110.5 million grant. The ARP funds, the grant was $286.9 million, and we have now $66.6 million available. Most of that balance that is subtracted out is requisitioned, but it is not yet contracted. We have the refurbishment contracts that are stuck in their legal predicament, for lack of a better term, represent approximately $120 million, and we're going to be adding to that. I fully anticipate that we'll be able to expend and obligate all of the funds for the ARP grant. And we have requested approvals to change and realign our spending plan, and those have been received and accepted and approved by the U.S. Department of Education. That gives my team back here now the opportunity to press on with moving forward with other contracts to expend that. At the same time, I'm trying to reserve approximately $5 million for contingencies that can come up in these projects because, for example, in the FBLG contract the specs were written before Mawar, and now we've come back and we find that we have additional damage that was not included in the bid. We still have to prepare it. We can't not fix the whole school. So we're still working with the contractor to tease out exactly what that cost would be. That's why I'm keeping a contingency fund so I can pay that bill when it comes. Indirect cost expenditures. In the next slide, that table looks a little bit intimidating to look on the slide, but I provided you a separate printout. Indirect costs, the indirect budget goes along with our consolidated grant. What it's for is to cover the administrative cost of supporting and operating the actual grants. So that, if you look at the listing there, you see that there's a number of individuals, and they happen to be that their jobs are funded out of that, but they are federal grant managers, auditors, and attorneys that manage that, do the work to be able to deliver and operate those grants. So there's a little bit of flexibility in that budget, but we're really reluctant to spend it because it fluctuates from year to year in terms of percentage of what the grant is. So for example, for fiscal year 25, we only have part of our grant information yet. We don't know what the indirects are going to be for that, but that's where we spend that money, is for those positions. And can I have the next slide? To talk about job fair results, in the next couple slides, you can see that we did our job fair on the 20th of June. We still are advertising for all of our positions and recruiting, but that was the one on-site opportunity that we had folks come in be able to apply for employment with us. So there were 83 referrals picked up, 54 walk-ins, people who had not applied before, and 28 non-teacher walk-ins. So we serviced 165 folks that day. On the next slide, the applicants that are being processed, you can see the listing there. There are 112 total, different kinds of employees. I was privileged to speak to our new teachers yesterday, and I thought that that was really an exciting thing to see those young folks that are coming in. And those are all certified new teachers that are coming in to teach for us. Then the next slide, you can see the secondary aid recruitment that's going on. School aides, we have federally funded, locally funded, and then the total numbers that we have there. And the distribution, that panel on the bottom right. Active recruits are in progress for positions that we know we're short. Chamorro studies, school level aides, 10 special ed aides, and then 17 in curriculum instruction. And that's it. I'll be happy to answer questions for you and have my team here to provide details.
Thank you for your report, Superintendent. And again, just for the viewing public, these monthly oversight hearings are a result of Bill number 157, which was signed into law by the governor, and that bill moved the compliance timeline for public health compliance relative to the schools to the upcoming school year. And there was also a little section in there that mandated that I conduct these monthly oversight hearings, and we're just a little bit late on our June hearing, but we had just a really long session. And so, again, thank you for your presentation. I guess I'll just start with certified teachers. As the upcoming school year is approaching, are we going to have a certified teacher in every classroom?
Okay, come talk about teachers. That's the plan, and we're working with our staff right now, because the other part that's fluid is total enrollment. And Dr. Adamas couldn't be here today. She has some family issues to take care of, but we met with the principals today on just that topic, and we're working through it. So Ms. Ada can talk to you more in detail about where we are with staffing our teachers.
Mrs. Ada, if you could just state your name and title for the record.
Catherine Ada, Personnel Services Administrator. Our vacancies, we still have, we're hovering around 60 vacancies for the school year. How we are providing the support is we have limited part-time teachers that we've had to hire as well. We had retirees that have come back to us. This is actually the least recruitment we've had in the last couple of years. I think the exercise we did with regards to the cross-leveling really helped. We're trying to make sure that it's aligned to our school population, so that the administrators are very cautious of this. At the same time, we have a decrease in applicants, certified teachers. We had tried to be more proactive and ensure we're working with UOG and different opportunities to make sure we capture the certified teachers that are available in the market. Am I not loud enough?
Maybe just get a little bit closer, ma'am. Thank you.
Do I have to repeat that? Did you?
Huh? No, please continue. I heard you. This is more for the public so they can get a clear signal. Thank you.
So I think we're in a good position. However, we are aware that nationwide it is a challenge to have certified teachers. There's a lot of different states that we're aware of that are looking to actively recruit in the universities as well. For example, the 23 that had graduated, we worked very closely with CNI as well as UOG to see how we are able to make sure our limited part-time are able to avail of opportunities to get certified, and as well as our limited term full-time employees, so that we can secure them as permanent teachers. We do have a significant increase in retirees. It's to be expected. We're in the aging workforce, so that is something we're constantly monitoring, but we're doing the work we need to. We do have vacancies, so we're hoping that if there are individuals that have just graduated are interested in teachers as career, we do have opportunities in a way of limited part-time employment and opportunities available on the federal side that can help support to get them the certificate they need.
Thank you, Mrs. Ada. So am I to take it that you have 60 teacher vacancies? Is that the number that we're sure about?
That's the number we're thinking we'll get to as soon as we secure all the applicants. Yesterday and today we secured 128. We are still receiving more applicants that we are rating at the same time. The last couple of days I've also received 3 retirees, so it's a fluid number. That's the number I anticipate us to be about before the school year.
I don't know if this is a question for Superintendent Swanson or Mrs. Ada, but and I brought this up in previous hearings, but what I hear from teachers and relative to the vacancies is they talk about the content coaches and admin that are at GDOE Central who are certified. And so if we're looking at starting the school year with 60 teacher vacancies, is there any effort to get anybody who's certified at the central office out into the classroom so that we don't run the risk of being sued again for the Adequate Education Act
We
violations?
already have, those coaches already are placed at the school level. And so they're available. And then we've done the same in regular education and special education classes both. At the end of the day, one of the things we have to do is look at the master schedule and class sizes and compress the school, and the principals are already having that conversation so that we have certified teachers in every classroom. That is our goal, and it's a challenge.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sense of it because I know the enrollment is down, and then you did the cross-leveling, right?
One of the things that we're doing across the system is that we're buying the preparation time for the teachers, so during their prep period, they go cover another class. Principals are doing the same thing themselves. So it's all hands on deck to deliver the program. Hopefully we'll have a healthy year, and so our absentee rate would be lower. There's some nasty bugs going around though too. And it's going to be a work in progress all along, but you know, we've made a lot of gains on it, but we're not there yet.
So just again, with all of the certified teachers who would normally be at the central office are going to be sent out to the schools, and you've done the cross-leveling and maximization, you had the job fair, and you're also looking at the part-time certified teachers, but with all of that being done, we are still going to be 60 short at the start of the school year. How much are you planning on chipping away at that number?
I'd like to make it all go away, but I mean, it's, we'll continue to work with it, and one of the things that we have been doing is some of our aides that have been working with us are in a cohorts to go through and finish up their certification so that they can assume that role, but that continues. We're not done with that yet. We still have folks in that program. At the same time, encouraging young folks as they graduate to go in and major in education. So it's a constant recruiting program challenge for us, and we've lost some folks to DODEA. They pay more, and you get to travel. So it's a challenge. You know, we're not in this field alone. We have competitors.
Right, I just worry because, you know, there's efforts being undertaken by this body, and I think in a hearing for one of these bills, which is seeking to allow teachers who aren't certified to teach in the public school, the GDOE classrooms, right? And so when I look at this shortage, I worry that we're going to give credence to any effort to lower the standards. I'm not in the game of lowering the standards, so that's why I'm very concerned about us being able to really deliver certified teachers in every classroom as the school year approaches. So Thank you for that effort. What about special education teachers? I'm hearing that our Estembo Middle School, are they having an issue with the SPED? Or just generally, if you could, tell us where we're at with SPED teachers.
I don't know what.
Specifically for SPED? Oh, I don't, I'm sorry, I don't have the SPED numbers at the top of my head, but in terms of teachers.
Can you speak up, ma'am?
I don't have the SPED numbers at the top of my head at the moment, but we are actively recruiting on all areas, all efforts. I do know that we closed the gap pretty much in terms of what we're looking for. There's a couple of I guess, initiatives that SPED has done to make sure we have certification or certification opportunities, and we're bridging. We had a few transfers from other teaching categories into SPED. So I believe we're closing the gap on that. It's not completely at zero, but it's not an alarming number.
Okay, if you could just provide that to the committee, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. And then I guess, Soup, we can move on to the new specific conditions. So a big part of these new specific conditions involves supporting the internal audit office, and your management team is committed to doing that?
Yeah, yes, we do support it, and he's still recruiting one more position, but we filled, for the most part, filled that office, and it's fully funded and operational.
Another one of the specific conditions mentioned the hiring of qualified personnel in leadership positions.
I have someone coming on board in the DFAS position that will be next week. He'll be on board, and his name is Wade Paul. He's former comptroller in the Army and also is a general staff officer with quite a bit of organizational experience. I expect to see that make a significant difference in our operation. I've been covering that for a while, and I'll be more than happy not to be covering it at this point because I want more eyes on the operation. We're still looking for a comptroller. That's been a real thin field to find people that are qualified at the CPA level to be a comptroller in our organization because of the size of the budget operation that we have. And I have had some suggestions from the public auditor, and when I've talked to those folks, they've said, that's a little bit more responsibility than what I want. And so it's a challenging job, but we're still trying to fill it.
Okay. So yeah, anybody watching out there, you have comptroller, qualifications. It's a very large government agency. It's a very big responsibility. What's the pay?
I don't know the scale right off the top of my head. It's probably not enough.
Soup, also in the new specific conditions, I know that there was an issue with vendor payments and received goods and services being handled in a timely manner. So what efforts have you undertaken to ensure that we improve those processes? We
have been able to expand the staffing in our accounting department, starting with the 25 budget. So we'll be able to add an account supervisor to that process. We also need to take a look at the processes for reviewing and authorizing drawdowns from the grants, because the timeline that Department of Education put on it doesn't coincide with the amount of time it takes them to respond to a request for a drawdown, and it's not really a good idea to spend money you don't have. So the board has determined that they want to review that timeline and have some discussion with the Department of Education about the turnaround time for authorization, because right now it can be in addition to 10 days, but they want it in 24 hours. And so we have to work that piece out. But my objective is when I look at our reports every month on the length of time it takes to pay invoices, I want to see it that where nothing goes over 60 days.
I'm sure your vendors would love that too.
And our vendors, I know, would appreciate that as well.
I'm just moving on to the subject of the audit. What's the status of the Evergreen audit?
The audit, it's in progress.
Okay.
We talked, the last I spoke with Ernst & Young was about a week and a half ago. They said they're on track, they've got everything they need, and they'll turn that over to the public auditor as soon as they're finished. And
this is the management audit?
The management audit, I have no status on that yet.
Okay.
This is the FY23 audit.
All right. The corrective action plan relative to the student laptop purchases, has that been implemented?
Yes, the two parts to that. The first one is the SOP for accountability and tracking, and we've got that fully implemented. The other half of it is changing our practice for how we do procurement. You recall from that audit, the fault was that they used an open source tool that should have been curtailed after about 6 months and put out for a whole bid. So now we are taking a really close look at the total price of what we're trying to do and going through the procurement progress, and also process and retraining people too under the procurement laws so that we're doing these things the right way.
Yeah, and this resurfaced in the media, and I think it was kind of implied that this committee didn't take enough action on it, but I recall that we were in here in a previous hearing when the audit had come out, and I'd actually asked, are you doing everything you can with your powers as superintendent to ensure that this type of thing doesn't happen again?
Well, we've put the SOP in place, and we're monitoring it very closely on how we're doing procurements. Right. And why it was done the way it was done, I couldn't tell you, except that the tool in the public auditor's perspective and in our folks is that open process should be used in a limited basis rather than over and over several times. So we've taken that, and we're taking a really close look at all of the projects that we're trying to fund and making the determination to put them into a package and then go through the procurement process. The only thing at this point that inhibits us is getting that through the AG's office, and that hopefully that's going to get resolved soon, and it will unclog that log jam that's there. We have well over $100 million of our procurement stuck right now in that process. Okay.
And at the time this audit was released, as I'm sure you recall, it's very controversial, and Guam Department of Education had defended the purchase of the laptops, defended the number of laptops that were purchased. And, for me as the oversight chair, I didn't want to get into micromanaging you guys about decisions you make that you think are going to benefit the students. But again, I did have a big issue with the process where it looked like the process was manipulated, right? And now, obviously, the AG has come out and said that he's investigating that, and I think that's the proper avenue for that type of action. So on my end, I just want to make sure that we have, followed the audit recommendations, put the corrective action in place, and done everything that you can as a superintendent, as a department, to not only ensure this doesn't happen again, but to be mindful and aware of these types of instances, before they hit the news, frankly.
We don't want to be newsworthy about anything except successes. And I personally have to sign off on all those procurements, and I'm watching them very closely. Okay,
thank you. What is the status, and I'm just kind of moving around here, Soup, but we had a conversation about the expiration of some of these federal funds, and there was an idea, and I think this was done with ARP funds, where we move the federal funds over to expenditures like payroll, for example. And then we have the local funds available for refurbishment, construction, that type of thing, since the local funds don't expire. So is that something that we're undertaking? Where are we in that process?
We haven't started anything process-wise on that, but it's certainly not out of the question, because anything that we can do within the law to keep from losing that money, I want to do, because we still have to do the work. And the amount of work that needs to be done is well beyond the capacity of this body to be able to fund.
What was the number you threw out again?
Right now,
I remember when you first
the
came on
whole
board,
thing,
yeah, you had thrown out some.
I gave you a conservative estimate of $500 million,
Right.
and I would say it's closer to 700
Sure.
in 10 years to fix it all the way that I think it should be fixed.
So, Mr. Superintendent, is there any legislation that you anticipate that this body might need to introduce to address this movement of funds and the expiration of the federal funds?
Right, we're looking into the mechanics of that and how it could be done. Our former speaker, Wampat, had done that earlier with another kind of grant, so we're looking at if that's possible in this case, and if needs be, we would do that.
Okay, will you let us know if we need to or
yeah.
how we can help? Because I don't want to be on the hook for losing,
Sure,
$200 million in federal funds.
There may be a need for action by the legislature to make that possible, and we want to investigate that. And so well before the end of August, we'll move on that if we have to.
Okay, thank you. Temporary campus for Simon Sanchez High School. I just first, for me, it seems like, well, there's been a lot of conversation about the different options, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just my understanding of the process and how it moved along was FEMA asked the Guam Department of Education to present two options.
Two options.
Two options, one a build option and then another a lease option.
And their stated preference is for lease because they don't want to buy stuff. There's a lot of community interest in having the portable buildings or the prefabricated buildings up adjacent to Simon Sanchez. So my objective is to get the two student bodies decoupled so they can operate on their own schedule and run the full program, because right now their time is restricted and it really does impact. And for those 3,000 kids are getting a different amount of educational time than the other high schools. And I want them to have the same opportunity. Their program, academic program, is intact, but the activity program is curtailed because of availability of space.
I think we can also assume or even accept as fact that their academics are being affected because, and it's not just the Simon Sanchez community that's being negatively impacted by this double session.
JFK as well. Yes.
I mean, JFK kids are up at 4 in the morning, right? And they're in class by a little after 6 a.m. So it's been a sacrifice for both of these schools. And I know that I've been like a broken record since last year, asking you to do what you could to end this double session. And I was a little bit hopeful that we'd be able to do that by the start of this upcoming school year, but obviously that's not going to happen. And looking at these different options, in your opinion, which one do you think is a quicker track to get this double session ended, or have you arrived at that decision yet? And I know the decision is not necessarily yours, it's FEMA's, but when I look at the two options, obviously there are positives and negatives for both, right? When we talk about constructing a temporary campus across from Sanchez, you have all the environmental assessments, we might find the snails, there might be more snails out there, right? But then you have, all the standard delays with supply chain and all the issues with, potential issues with, constructing anything from the ground up. I mean, look at the construction of the new Sanchez campus and where we are with that after all these years. And the other option, the lease option, I can understand the criticism, and I'm encouraged that you're looking for a breakdown on the lease cost, because it did seem a little bit
FEMA
high.
wants to know, as I understand it, FEMA wants to know, as well as the administration, is what does that lease cost entail, and what's the service that comes with it? My understanding is it's build to lease, so the owner does the design and build, and the lease over time pays that all out. But I don't know that technically, so that's the information that the Chief of Staff's office is pulling together with the owner of the property to submit to FEMA for their consideration.
Have there been any other potential properties that have surfaced since this process became public?
I have not seen it, although I have heard that there are other places that are interested.
So while we're awaiting a final decision on which of these options we're going to pursue, is it the Guam Department of Education's decision to keep that double session in place until we decide on one of these options, or is there an alternate plan?
There is not a workable option at this point. Once FBLG is back on their campus, we could make an adjustment, but the doubling up would be on that campus, but at least be in their own neighborhood, and that's an option we've discussed, but I'm not prepared to act on at this point because we're 6 months at least away from that campus being ready to reopen.
FBLG.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's the other double session. So FBLG is occupying now what's known as the Freshman Academy at Ukadu High School. And so we're looking at that, and you know, it's frustrating because when this chunk of ceiling fell and the school was closed and they were sent over to Ukadu High School for this double session, the superintendent at that time, who I believe was Francis Santos, had said that we were looking at 6 months, a 6-month time frame to get everything done, the construction, the repairs, the bid, all that stuff. And obviously it's stretched on much farther than that. So do you mean 6 months for real? Is that your best estimate?
My estimate with what the contractor we have, that's the level that he's working at, we could be in 6 to 7 months, but I can't nail that down because we found at the same time, he also discovered additional work that needed to be done because of the storm damage that wasn't in the original scope of work. Mm. Now he's moving quickly. He's got a large crew on site, and he's been, you know, really proactive to get things done. So I'm encouraged by that.
Okay. And I had got a suggestion from a constituent relative to some of these contracts because obviously it's been in the news, the break-ins, but more concerning, that's not a typo, 52 break-ins at FP Leon Guerrero?
The break-ins? Was that what the question was?
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
At Finnegajan, you mean?
Okay, Finnegajan, yeah. So FB also been in the news lately because they're still in the copper wire. And you had mentioned that, here we go. Yeah, so Finnegajan Elementary, yeah, that's, and I did talk to the chief about this, right? That's
page 7.
Unacceptable. FB Leon Guerrero, so now we're looking at the thieves are breaking in and they're stealing the construction supplies. You had mentioned that you were in the process of securing boots on the ground security?
That's correct.
Okay, what's the timeline on that?
We still have to put it out for procurement, but we can get the contract under $500,000. We can turn that around in about a month.
Right. Okay, yes, do what you can to get that under 500,000 piecemeal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know what we're up against, but for example, the Estimbo Middle School air conditioning, we were able to do in about 3.5 weeks. The contractor started working today.
Okay, so are there issues, because I did get some concerns about air conditioners at Estimbo and Ukadu.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there any issue with aircon installation or repair at Estimbo Middle School or Ukadu?
Well, the Estimbo contract, and this all hinges around the lease and what they can pay for and what they can't. We've worked the project. The first effort was to get Estumbo decoupled from Benavente and get them on their own again and get that alternating schedule disposed of. Now we have to look at Ukadu, because we are in a lease-to-own situation, it's legal for us to use ARP dollars to do those repairs. If it was a straight lease and we were never going to own the buildings, then we couldn't do that. But I have the funding and I have it released now by U.S. Department of Education to do this kind of thing. So that's next. That Ukadu is next.
Okay. What about Tamuning Elementary? I actually had some concerns from teachers at Tamuning Elementary who say that the process of the AC installation, and I'm not sure if it's the classrooms or the big chiller, but they're saying there hasn't been much progress over the summer. Are you able to verify that?
We went on through the other schools in that zone. Now we're starting the second round, so there'll be more work that's going to be done on all the campuses.
Thank you. The George Washington High School gym. So, Biba Geckos, I was out at the gym on Saturday and very pleased because the timeline we got from Nick at CIP, I wasn't anticipating the big chiller units to be here soon. I think we were looking at maybe August, right? So that's really encouraging that you've actually had a couple of the multi-ton units installed at the George Washington High School gym. But when I visited the gym, there was an issue relative to the ducts so you install the chiller out on the roof, and then the ductwork inside is from Antis Guantis. We're looking at, these ducts are very, very old, right? So you got a brand new AC, moldy ducts that haven't been cleaned in years, right? Because this AC at the GW gym has been down, I think, since before the pandemic. And so just talking with some of the staff there, they said they had run it up the flagpole and they were told that there weren't any funds to do that cleaning. But I had called you, right after I left the gym, and you had said, I think you had said the one thing GDOE is not right now is broke, which is great to hear. But so what is now the status with the ductwork and the GW gym? Because I've got a lot of parents and, stakeholders, athletes looking at, hopefully, knock on wood, being able to play home games at GW in the upcoming school year.
Well, we should be able to get the rest of the ductwork and the other two air conditioners. They're already installed. They're just not operational because the ductwork has to be redone. But that's in process.
So you're going to put in all new ducts?
I don't know that. I'm not going to swear to that.
You want to get any of your facility guys up? These geckos are on me, man. I got to get the definitive answer about this gym.
Give me your name.
Sir, and just if you don't mind, state your name and title for the record.
Senator Barnett, Jim Pangilinan, the new facilities maintenance manager. Currently, right now, we're having issues with our contractor. The package units now, he was under the assumption that all he was going to do was do the transition duct. We brought in the procurement gurus and we sat down with him and we said, too close?
A little closer.
We brought up the procurement gurus. We sat down with the contractor and told him, it's in the contract that you have to change the ducting if it's damaged or if it needs to be replaced due to motor, stuff like that. So he has to do it. He has to do it, but in order for him to do it, he has to fabricate the duct and all that stuff. So it's going to take a little longer. But the main thing for him, as I told him, was to get it installed, try to run it. If it's safe, then run it. We can always double back and get it. Just hang on 1 minute. So that's what's going on with that, and then the issues with the ducts, the other places that you were talking about that they were having problems with the ducts, right? Like Tamuning, that was one of the issues. It's a package unit, so he has to repair the duct. So he thought that we were going to pay for it, and I told him we're not going to pay for it. You're going to have to do it. So now he came to the realization that he has to do it. So they're making all the duct now, and they're going to go ahead and start installing that.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. So just with GW, what's the timeline? And just for clarification, have we turned on any of the units at the gym? And then what would the timeline be for the duct replacement? I think there's, 4 big ducts?
So right now, we informed him that he has to make the duct. In order for him to install, he's got to make one, right? He has to take the measurements, buy the materials, and then make it, and then they can come back and install it. So we're looking at a timeline of maybe, he has 1 whole year to complete his contract, so I hope it's not going to take that, right? But I will continue to talk to him for the sake of the geckos. I'm going to try to get it in sooner.
Just for the kids, I mean?
Yeah, right on. Yeah. I'm all for the kids.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'll be following up with you too. But, I mean, to me, it makes sense to have him finish that, let it be done, and then move on to Tamuning Elementary. So what's the status with that?
Tamuning right now, we send him, he's going back now, and he's making the ducts now. Once the ducts are in, he'll bring his people back and start installing, because all the ducts are damaged, all of them.
Wow.
So it's going to be costly for him to do it. So, but he's already on it.
Okay, and that is included in the contract because there was a lot of confusion, I mean, from both sides. Like, it sounds like he didn't even know what was in the contract, and then I had heard from other officials, and I want to say in this public hearing room that it wasn't included or maintenance wasn't included.
Well, on the package units, they are.
Okay.
So the ducting will be taken care of.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate that, Mr. Pangilinan.
Yeah, anything else, sir?
Hold on, just hang around.
All right.
Yeah, because I'm going through my notes.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we kind of took a turn there, but just back to the Simon Sanchez temporary campus, Mr. Superintendent. So you don't have a definitive timeline?
I don't have a definitive timeline on it. My experience tells me that if we end up with the leased facility, that will go faster. As you mentioned, you don't know when you start clearing land, you don't know what you're going to run into. So the civil engineering side of it, it's pretty extensive work to put in sewer, water, power. Those utilities are there on the property, but they're not in a configuration. Whereas in a lease facility, everything is stubbed out, and the intent of the design of that building is to be able to reconfigure it inside for different businesses. From what I'm told, that's the kind of environment that FEMA would rather go into, to do a lease rather than buy. And because at the other side of it, if we go through the temporary facility at Simon Sanchez, once the school is open, the disposal of those units and the conversion of them to some other purpose becomes a challenge, and we have rules with FEMA that we have to work inside of that are not as simple as finishing a lease and being
right. And that's kind of just some of the stuff that I've been hearing is that there's some issue about whether or not FEMA would be willing to reimburse the build option, because as you know, what has been discussed with this temporary build across Sanchez is that we would prefab these classrooms from some vendor, and then after the new Sanchez was completed and opened, that this would somehow turn into affordable housing. And I think that's where it kind of gets a little iffy on the FEMA reimbursement side. So
the reimbursement becomes important either way that we go. You're looking at $25 to $28 million.
Right. Again, but that's just what I've heard from different people that I've talked to, that there might be issues, difficulties in securing FEMA reimbursement if we're building temporary and then selling or whatever the option is after that. But then on the flip side, the criticism I've heard just from parents, teachers, stakeholders on the mall side is there's this thought that we're not going to get anything at the end of it, but what we could get is reimbursement up to 90%.
We get the reimbursement at 90%.
And so then it becomes a wash, really.
It should be.
We're almost empus already because we spent the money and then we got it back. I mean, in a perfect world, if you guys are doing all your paperwork right with FEMA.
Well, I'm hoping for a perfect world, but I haven't seen it yet. But
right.
We can certainly improve it.
So what's the timeline with reaching an actual decision? And I guess the first question is, has your extension been granted?
I'm sorry?
The extension, so the governor's authorized representative had asked for extension from FEMA?
We asked for an extension, and then we went into this cycle of providing more information. We have another meeting coming up in about 10 days' time. And then we have to submit, we've been submitting additional information along as we go, and we'll continue to do that as they ask for it. I would anticipate a decision from them probably early August.
So very soon. So you're anticipating a decision in early August, and then if you kind of look at some of the preliminary information, I know there was some letters going around, some charts with just the different timelines. The timeline for the lease option, from what I saw, was something like 6 months.
That's correct.
And then for the build option, it was, I think the estimate was obviously a little bit longer, because you're going to have to do any types of assessments to the property before you can even build on it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so whatever decision we reach in early August will give us a clearer picture on just how long the double session with Sanchez and JFK will last.
That's what I would expect, yes.
Okay, so we just continue to ask the patience of the Sharks community, but the wheels are rolling, and I know it's not my committee oversight. I don't have oversight of the construction of the new Simon Sanchez High School, but I was encouraged that they have awarded the contract for the construction manager.
That's correct.
Okay.
They're working out the details of that now, so.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, now to the Typhoon Mawar recovery projects. So this has just been a really rough ride. I mean, we have pounded the table, all kinds of stuff, got mad in this hearing room because there's been no progress with this $20 million that was taken from GDOE for the Typhoon Mawar relief efforts for GDOE, and you've asked us to ask for the money back, that you change your mind, and now you're saying that there is a collaboration between GDOE and GSA, and it really looks like we're very close to actually awarding a couple of these very important projects, the mold mitigation and the fencing, here over a year after the storm. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah, and we've been able to do that because we've got one of our more experienced procurement folks working directly with GSA, and they've partnered up on that. We got the kinks out of what was causing the delay, and I should hope that we have, like I said, we've got one in pre-publication examination at the AG's office, and the other one is just about ready to go as well. So both of those should be out soon.
That's good news. Well, Chamorro Standard Time, but I guess better late than never. On to the indirect cost expenditures. Can you just explain for the viewing public? I mean, I have an understanding of what the indirect costs are, but how are these funds generated?
How are they what?
How are the indirect cost funds generated?
They're generated in conjunction with the consolidated grant. And they're basically administrative costs to operate the grant. That's what the intent in the law is. The money is moved out of the grant environment in terms of approvals into local funds. The intent is that that money then is used to support the administrative costs of operating the grant. So if you look at the list of things there, we've put that mostly in salaries, which include our attorney, one of the attorneys, several of the folks from the internal audit office, and project management, so that we can operate and do all the things we need to do.
So basically, each grant, or when you receive a grant, there's a small percentage. It's usually anywhere from 1% to 3%.
Right.
That's set aside for the administering of the grant. So the chart you gave me lists several hires, and so you're saying here that all of these hires are relative to administering the different grants that the Guam Department of Education receives?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other indirect cost expenditures? Because I thought I heard something about party favors at one of the board meetings.
About what?
Party favors?
We haven't bought party favors.
Could you provide me with every expenditure for the indirect costs? Do you guys travel on indirect costs funds?
No.
No? Okay. So just
No.
whatever else you have.
Travel associated with grants is actually programmed in the grant.
Okay. So again, if you could just provide all of
Right.
if this isn't it, is this it? The
Okay.
hires? If there's any other expenditures, I'd like it if you could just
Okay,
provide that to the
yeah,
committee.
we
Okay.
can pull that.
Thank you. And I'd also like to get, because you had said something, and it's in your printout, the self-inspections. And these are basically the Guam Department of Education staff, and you guys go out and you do your assessment based on everything that public health is looking at relative to the school inspections, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Our administrators do it, and then our maintenance folks follow behind them and do it again. That's the criteria that we have to work to, so we're always aiming at that target.
Right, and it doesn't look like there's much of a variance between what you guys are finding in your self-inspection and what public health is finding.
No, we've gotten a lot better at it
Right.
with practice.
Yeah, well, and you know, I got to congratulate the effort at Liguan Elementary, where we now got the highest public health inspection grade for a public school, a grade of a B.
Yeah, there's now people elbowing for an A. So
Right, that's great. That's great. And I just got to say, you know, when I came into office at the beginning of last year, the conversation relative to our public schools, it was not a good conversation. I mean, we were looking at rat infestation, mold infestation, obviously structural issues, neglect of maintenance, and we had agreed as a body that the schools were posing a significant health and safety risk to our students and the employees of the Guam Department of Education. And, you know, I was shocked to find out that we were sending our kids to schools that weren't even being inspected. I was more shocked to find out that GDOE would get a blanket permit for all the schools that they would hang in the central office. But when I went over to Simon Sanchez High School, the last time they had been physically visited by public health inspectors was in 2016. And so prior to my coming into office and passing Public Law 37-4, there was no requirement for public health to physically go into the schools and assess and inspect the conditions of the schools relative to the safety and the sanitation guidelines, which I felt was atrocious. And it was one of the things that I actually campaigned on that I'm very grateful that the Guam Department of Education, through all the hard work of the biggest department in the government of Guam, really, I think, helped us change the entire conversation about our schools. We're now sending our kids to schools that not only have been inspected, but have passed inspection. And I think it's a great place to start, to put in a standard and to really adhere to it. And as I'm sure the public knows, after the typhoon hit, the body had decided that the Guam Department of Education needed more time to comply with these health and safety sanitation guidelines, and we passed two laws. I didn't vote for these laws, but these two laws were passed in an emergency session. One of them moved the compliance timeline back to the start of the upcoming school year, and the other one allowed the superintendent of education to continue operating schools that were awaiting public health inspection in school year 2023 and 2024. And it also gave you, Mr. Superintendent, the authority to continue operating schools that have failed public health inspection. And I was very discouraged when those laws came out. I felt that we had worked so hard to set a standard into place, and I didn't want to deviate from that because I really felt like we have to show our students and our teachers and our staff and everybody who's got a hand on the wheel in the Guam Department of Education that, you know, quite simply, they're worth it. You know, our kids are are worth it. We're going to send them to schools that are safe and clean, so that they don't have to worry about that kind of thing, and they can concentrate on, you know, what they're supposed to do when they go to school. Is concentrate on the learning. And so when these two laws were passed, you as the superintendent could have decided to just, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater and, you know, used your authority to do nothing. But I'm encouraged and I'm very grateful that you didn't do that. You continued to move the department forward, and you continued to hold that standard in place. You continued to have the department do what it could to prepare the schools, as difficult as it was, and I know it was a challenge for your department and your staff. But again, the department never stopped moving forward, and that's something that I really want to just put on the record, that I really appreciate that, because like I said, we could have just said, okay, we'll just worry about it next year, but this is the conversation now. You know, we've got so many stakeholders at the schools helping to get these schools to be able to pass inspection, and I think it's, you know, I'm not trying to say there's, of course, obviously there's so much more work that needs to be done, but I think in the short time that I've been a senator, we've really been able to push that and to really reach a point where I feel like we come in here every month, and you know, as long as you guys are in the rails, just keep moving forward. And so I'm very appreciative of all the hard work that you've done. And you know, we've had a million conversations about this. I'm a little disappointed that the help that was promised by the administration never really materialized. But that being said, you know, the hardworking DOE employees became mold experts. They became maintenance experts. They became plumbers. They became, you know, makeshift electricians, and they really lifted and did a lot of the work to get us, you know, where we're at. And you know, that being said, there's obviously still many more things that we need to do to continue to bring improvements to the Guam Department of Education. But I think it's encouraging that everybody is on the same page and agreeing that, you know, the safety and the sanitations of our schools shouldn't be, you know, an afterthought, or shouldn't be something that we just kind of move to the side when it's convenient for it. So, you know, when we talk about your leadership as the superintendent, again, I'm very grateful that you never abandoned the effort to get these schools inspected, passed, and in a state, you know, that reflects, you know, something our kids can look at and, you know that, hey, okay, these grown-ups are supporting me. They're trying to get me to classes that are, you know, an environment that's conducive to learning. And so I appreciate that effort never stopped moving forward. So I just wanted to say that on the record. As you know,
I do want to thank you for that, but I have to also give credit to my team. Mm-hmm. This is not a one-man act. And you see in my email, we're all crew, there are no passengers. And I mean that, no passengers. And everybody behind me and all the people you don't even get to see are committed. And I'm proud of that, what they do. And yes, we do have a lot more work to do, but we're going to get there.
Well, in order to get there, there's certain things that need to happen. And the biggest thing I think that needs to continue happening is the work being done at the school level. And some of the biggest work that remains to be done is the refurbishment of the schools, and there's a really big refurbishment contract that we were able to push through the Attorney General's office. And just for the record, the Attorney General signed the refurbishment contract, and what is the status of that now?
Well, because we added some schools, 2 of them are complete and they're at the governor's office, and 2 of them are being modified to add the 2 schools, which is a simple part of the process because they were already in the scope of work when the original bid was done. So those updates are being put on 2 of the contracts, and then they'll be sent forward to the governor's office as well.
Okay, and so we had met about this last week, but just again, for the record, what conversation, if any, of you had with the Office of the Governor relative to the signing of these contracts? So let's just be clear, the work that's very needed at our schools, and this is some of the major work, right? These are the Tier 3 schools that we'd all talked about. Remember that, Tier 3? So these are the Tier 3 schools, and these are the schools like, you know, DL Pears, where my two young children attend, right? These are schools that require major work, and I'm of the opinion that this work should have already been started, but that's not the case, and it's because these contracts haven't been signed. So what have you heard from the Office of the Governor about, are they going to sign them? Is this just part of this battle with the AG?
It's all relative to the discussion with the AG's office. I was hopeful that once that went through the Supreme Court that we would get motion on this, but we haven't. I personally spoke with the governor. I've worked with Dr. Wampat, who's her education liaison, and our board chair has also met with her to try and get this to move, and until they get to the legal piece of it sorted out, I don't know how fast it's going to move.
I don't buy it. I don't think that there should be an issue. You're right. When the Supreme Court came out with their ruling, I anticipated that we start to see more forward action. And these are some heavy hitters that are going to talk to the governor. I mean, we're talking about former Speaker Judy Wampat, who's now been hired by the administration to be the special assistant on education, and she's
correct.
Yeah, she's the governor's chief advisor on education, or whatever the title is. And then you have, the education board chair, Dr. Mary Okada. I mean, these are some heavy hitters, and they've gone and asked that these contracts be expedited, but we haven't seen any action. And I want to write a letter, but I'm scared that they're going to throw the contracts in the trash can if they get a letter from me.
I don't know what to tell you to do in your position. All I know is we're going to keep pushing.
Yeah, the contracts have to be signed because the work has to get started. And,
right, it can't start until they're signed.
Right.
I mean, the contractor is anxious to get started. We're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of the preliminary planning work that needs to be done. And the other part of it is, as we get closer and into the school year, that makes scheduling the work a lot more challenging. So because you always have to have the safety factor worked in.
Yeah, that's what's frustrating is just as the oversight chair, I mean, I've called the AG, I've called Attorney Nishihara to really keep an eye on the process of specifically the Guam Department of Education's contracts, because, you guys are like my baby. I want to make sure that the Head Start contract for the playground, where are we at with that? I mean, they're tired of hearing from me.
It's in the same place.
Yeah, and so, in kind of like, I don't know if pressuring's the right word, but man, I have been on the AG's office consistently to get these contracts reviewed, to get them signed, to make sure that this brouhaha between the Attorney General and the Governor doesn't affect our public school system and our public school students. And so when the Attorney General's office informed me that the contracts were signed, they were ahead of the Governor, I was like, yes, but now I'm just like, no, because they're not moving anywhere. And again, I don't know if they watch these hearings, but I would just put fabot, please sign the contract so we can get the work started, because the longer we delay, the more impact this is going to have on the upcoming school year. So please keep me posted if there's anything in writing. Have you got anything in writing about the reason these contracts haven't been signed?
No.
You said you spoke with the governor, and what
Yes.
was the conversation?
The nature of that conversation was at that time was that she was reluctant to act on them until she got the results back from the Supreme Court.
All right. Well, that's
And
frustrating.
that's come and gone, and
Yeah.
we haven't moved.
So, and I haven't seen this issue covered in the media, and I think it's this is front page news. We're ready to go, and this contract is now being held up at the desk of the governor. So again, just in the spirit of para ifamaguanta for our kids, there's asked that these contracts get signed so the work can get started.
We'll continue to pursue that through all three of my channels that I have available to me.
Thank you for that, Mr. Superintendent. The job fair, according to your report, was it successful?
I believe so, yes. I mean, I would love to have another 100 candidates to pick from, but there are limits to the population. But yeah, it was successful, at a good turnout in all of the areas. We have job vacancies in virtually every aspect of our organization.
What's the status of the hiring of your, you still have deputy superintendent positions open, and then with the Head Start program manager?
The Head Start program director interview has occurred. There's been a candidate selected. I don't know that they've been notified. Well, I'm sure they've been notified of whether or not they've officially accepted. I don't have that. I have not seen that paperwork come across my desk, but the interviews were Monday. And they were excellent. We had good candidates.
Okay. Has there been any development, positive or otherwise, with the whole situation with Head Start? Because again, the hard work of the department, the Head Start program, we really dodged a major bullet there.
Yeah, it's still, it's ongoing. Right now, they're working out the training plans they need to do, doing the hiring they need to do, getting kids registered so that the program is ready to go. The playground shade structures and playground installation, that contract is funded, and it's in the post-publication stage, so it's ready to go as soon as the logjam breaks. so that's had all the legal approvals that it needs to have, so we can move on that, and we've got the funding for it.
Okay. Again, if you could just provide a complete listing. I don't want to have to send a FOIA, so if you could just provide it willingly, a complete listing of all of the indirect cost expenditures again.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. And then there was something else I'd asked for. Yeah, so if you could provide that as well. Run back the tape. Yeah, thank you. Okay. I think we've exhausted just about everything on the agenda. The Chamorro immersion program, the Fanadzakan at PC Lujan. Now, there's obviously been, I'm pretty sure everyone's read about it, that program, I think, was subcontracted to Chief Harao Academy. No? So, yeah, please, Joe, come up. Yeah, what's the status on that? State your name for the record, sir. You know it's done.
Oh, wow. Chair broke. Off today, Joe Sanchez, Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. So we actually run the Fanadzakan program out of DOE. What we did have is we had an MOU with Harao Academy to do our pre-K. So basically they do the pre-K program, and those students at the younger age end up going into our kindergarten program. So we started off with kindergarten, and then when that class moved up, it was first grade. So this year, we now have kindergarten all the way through fifth grade. Fifth grade starts this year. So I think what you're referring to is Harao has decided to open up their own charter school. It's a different model. It's kind of like a hybrid type, so it's partial English and partial Chamorro. But we are maintaining our full immersion for kinder through fifth grade.
Will it continue to be at PC Lujan?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Last thing, and this was from some teachers, and I think I brought this up in the last few hearings. So when Agata Johnson was preparing for its public health inspection, I had learned from some of the staff there they'd run out of paint, and they were actually soliciting for donations of white paint, and I don't know if I had texted you about that, but it was just frustrating because, like I said earlier, you had told me that one thing DOE is not right now is broke. So why do I continue to hear things about teachers asking for donations of paint, teachers not having paper for Xerox or other supplies at the school site? So as we approach the upcoming school year, I just want to make sure that, every school's got all the supplies they need, that, we're not out here with our hand out asking for donations when you've got, tens of millions of dollars in federal funds at your disposal.
We do have a broad procurement out for all different kinds of school supplies, to include paper. Now, some schools internally have set copy limits to be able to manage their inventory better. but that's a local decision, building by building. The last time I checked, which was in the last couple of weeks, with regard to paint availability, is actually stock that's on the island. That's a challenge at the moment, but we've been procuring that, and we've got another cycle of procurement for those kind of supplies getting ready to start, because like I said, we just got the approval to use the federal dollars under ARP differently than we had initially programmed, so we're going to staff that and stock what we need.
Yeah, just buy, 100 gallons of the white paint, so you always have it on hand, and I mean, it's, we have a community, I think they've proven, right, especially in this last year with the typhoon and the public health inspections, whether it's the Guam Army National Guard, who again I got to thank for all their help at the school levels, or parents, PTOs, like our people are willing to do what they can to help, but I just, and I appreciate that, I'm so grateful for that, but when we're shaking them down for donations for white paint, again, while you're sitting on $66 million balance in the ARP funds, it just doesn't sit well with me, because, people don't care if you have $66 million. If there's no paint, guess what? Our people are going to go out and they're going to buy that paint. Or if there's no Xerox paper, we're going to go donate Xerox paper. And I just think it's frustrating that these, and I understand it's a large bureaucracy, but for me, these things should just be like the standards we're setting in place, something that people shouldn't have to worry about, So I hope you can commit to stocking up all those inventories, especially as we're nearing the start of the new school year.
We've done quite a bit of work internally with how we approach procurement for those supplies, and our procurement folks. We've tightened that operation up a lot in the last year, and I would hope that the results will show up in those things being at the ready rather than, for example, I know that people are used to saying there's no money for that. Hence the comment, somebody assumed that there was no money to take care of the duct in the GW gym. They didn't check. They just made an assumption. And I have a daughter who teaches on that campus and was told my air conditioning doesn't work. There's no money for that. That was 2 years ago. And sometimes that echo continues, and it takes time to get it to die down and get people to actually go in and say, hey, can we get this problem solved? And we've been working very hard at that. And our procurement staff and our curriculum and instruction staff have been working really hard to get all of the things purchased inbound in the schools where they belong. All I can say is we have to keep at it. When we see it, surface it, and we'll address it.
Thank you for that. And yeah, the reason has always, kind of thinking of Senator Brown always brings this up, the reason has always been lack of funds, right? And that's not the problem now. So if it's not the problem, then the problem is somebody's not keeping an eye on these things, So thanks for your commitment to do that.
We have, you asked a question about the deputies, Deputy Joe's been doing a great job all along, and we have now Dr. Adamas is looking at this from the ESCL side, but she's also the direct supervisor of the principals. So there's a lot more communication going on there and a lot more effort. I was in their meeting today, and it was a good conversation. Yes, there are some levels of frustration, but there's also an awful lot of celebration and positive competition. I want to see that show up on Monday, the 5th of August. I have my whole staff together in one place, and that's at the UOG Fieldhouse, and it's going to be the morning is pointing the direction that we're taking the ship. The afternoon is ethics training that everybody has to have anyway. That's great fun, 4 hours of lawyer talk, but...
That's pretty exciting.
It's
Ethics
exciting.
training's pretty exciting.
But it's the opportunity, and part of my thought process is I want us to see each other, actually see each other, because with over 3,000 employees, it's hard for us to think about that we're all part of a team, but this is like the crew of an aircraft carrier, and that's the way I'm approaching it. You know, we got people that have jobs that maybe we didn't even think about, but they all point the same direction: servicing kids, servicing the community. And I can't thank the community enough with all the different parent groups and all the different organizations that have stepped up school by school by school to help us get where we need to be. Yes, we're funded. We got a big chunk that's going to go away at the end of the fiscal year. So I'm really focused on where are we going with appropriated funds that we can manage here on the island, because I don't want another pandemic to get extra money. We can live without that whole thing. But I want to be sure that we are equipping ourselves and managing all of the resources we have so that we can continue to grow. Because at the end of the day, the facilities that we have that meet the current most high quality safety and design standards are the least facilities. The ones we own are badly outdated, and they present some serious challenges on a number of levels. How are we going to plan for the future to go ahead? Yes, we have a facilities plan that says these are the schools that need to be replaced, but how are we going to pay for that? How are we going to do it? How do we put together a revenue source that will facilitate that? Those are some really big challenges coming for the next couple of years.
Yeah, we're very blessed to have been, I mean, you know, the pandemic in many ways, unfortunately, was a little bit of a blessing because we saw this, you know, huge injection of hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funds. And I mean, I can't even imagine if we didn't get this money, we'd see no action at the schools. But again, all these tens of millions of federal funds mean nothing if they're sitting on someone's desk waiting for a signature. And, you know, while we're on the subject of the schools, so, for example, DL Perez, they have restroom work that needs to be done. So if these contracts are signed and we perform the work on the restrooms, I know that as it stands now, every GDOE school is compliant relative to the number of toilets to students, right? But when we start to go into this refurbishment and we start shutting down bathrooms to repair them, does that mean we can anticipate seeing porta potties? I just want to prepare people.
I don't believe so. I want to stay away from porta potties. That's okay. Bad press.
Thank you.
I don't want to explain it. But we will have to coordinate how we do the work in the schools so that we continue to operate smoothly, safely, and the contractor can get the things done that they need to get done.
Okay. Well,
that's a building by building solution.
Right on. So we've exhausted the agenda, and we've now come to the portion of the hearing that allows for public comment. So thank you, Superintendent, for your presentation. And just a little bit of a heads up, I want to get you guys back in here because this is the June oversight hearing. We're now, you know, nearing the end of July, but August is traditionally reserved for our budget session. So I'm going to really try and get you back in, but if we're a little busy working on that budget that you guys sent down, I hope you understand.
Well, I understand working on the budget part, and I'm sure it will be exciting work.
Right. Okay, so I guess in the meantime, if I'm not able to get you back in here before the start of the school year, and that's kind of what it's looking like, please provide the committee with the information that I had requested.
Sure.
Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you. Si Dios Masi, Mr. Superintendent. And again, thank you to your management team for providing testimony and information at this hearing. We're now open for public comment. If there's anyone signed up to provide public comment, and I think there is. Good evening, Mr. Summerfleck, Attorney Summerfleck.
Good evening, Senator.
Please just state your name for the record and then proceed with your
My name is
testimony.
Daniel Summerfleck. I'm here as the Executive Director of Guam Legal Services. I appreciate the time to speak tonight, and my concerns are legal concerns, and trying to sort through our laws. It would appear to me that half of our school system can't open at the beginning of this school year if they have not been inspected or if they have not obtained an exception through a variance. Everything I'm reading in public law suggests that half of our school system doesn't open. To me, this is of great concern. And my question becomes, we've provided in law a means for schools to obtain, if they do not obtain full compliance of the public health regulations, a means to obtain an exception. And I'm looking at Title 26 of Administrative Rules, Section 3 of the last bill that was passed, 4722, is unable to comply with the requirements of the rules upon a showing of good cause that is not the result of negligence or malfeasance, and if corrective action is in progress, the director may grant a variance. It also says that these variants should be submitted to the legislature, to the school board, and to various other individuals. I'm wondering if the legislature's received any of these variances.
Thank you for that, Attorney Summerfleck. And, you know, we did receive some reports, I think at the beginning of this, when we started requiring them, but I checked the website and we have not received variance reports, at least as far as I could see. And then another issue is when we do receive the reports, sometimes they look a little bit inconclusive because, you know, it'll say variance pending, et cetera. But this is something I can follow up with public health on.
I would also point out, if you look at page 9 of the presentation, which has the sanitary inspections, it appears that Tejan High School, J.P. Torres, Telefofo Elementary, John F. Kennedy High School, Antalan Middle School, Maritza Martyrs, and Inarahan Elementary School are all a year past their inspections. So of the 18 schools listed in the first chart, we then would add on, by my thought, 7 more schools. So more than half of our school system does not have current inspection. This, to me, is a primary concern for the government of Guam. This legislature passed the Adequate Education Act a number of years ago that requires safe, sanitary, and healthy school environments. I don't think we can look anyone in the face and say when we have 25 schools that have not been inspected, that the government of Guam, and I don't just speak about the Department of Education, because as this legislature put forward, it's a responsibility of the entire government of Guam to make sure our children have an adequate education, a fundamental right, a constitutional right of the children of Guam. So I would opine that this issue needs to be addressed unless the legislature intends to move forward on its bill that's floating right now about giving them another year. And I would opine that before we start giving another exception year, I think the question of variances becomes very valid and should be a primary question, and I will be present at the public hearing next Wednesday on these bills with this very question. My disappointment to the rest of your committee, Senator, where are they? If education is the #1 priority of our government, if education is so important and a vital aspect, I would say the most vital aspect, we are nowhere as a community if we don't educate our population, if we don't take and maximize the potential of each student that goes to our school system. And we're not doing that. If we can't even give them a building that's clean and safe and meets public health standards, we're not doing it. You know, since this controversy came up, and this is just me personally, I've started when I walk into restaurants looking, where's that health certificate? Are they an A? Are they a B? Are they a C? Because I'm certainly not interested in eating in a restaurant that's a D. You know, why is this any different? Why do we treat our children less than we treat restaurants? Why are the standards lower for our children than they are where I get a hamburger? Does not seem right. I bring this up because we're coming to a crucial point. We either start complying with laws and improving our education system, or we keep doing what the legislature has been doing. Let's pass a law. Oh, they didn't meet the law. Let's pass another law so they can have more time to meet the law that we already passed. Interestingly, the laws we're talking about aren't new. 5 years ago, we made this requirement. Why? So that concerns me. And honestly, that's why I was here, to hear whether they had applied for any variances, whether there's any record of seeking variances, whether there's been any effort to comply with Guam law. I understand, and I look at the chart, and I'm pleased. According to their self-assessments, you know, the highest number where they self-inspected is 62 demerits. I'm sorry, 77 demerits. I don't know what grade that is. I assume that's a F, but I don't know that. I know that 16 is a B, 38 is a C, all the way up to 40 is a C. I don't know where 77 stands on the rating scale.
That's an F.
So I would opine a job, and I apologize your colleagues aren't here, before they start talking about lifting law that's been in place, ask 2 questions. Have they applied for a variance? Second question, what are the 77 demerits you've received? I don't know when I look at this. I don't see that they've ever filed these school self-inspection reports, which I believe they're also required to provide to the legislature, but I couldn't find them. Maybe they're buried somewhere deep inside the legislative tombs. But before you start saying it's okay to have 77 demerits at Southern High School, look at it. Early in my legal career, I represented a gentleman who owed Guam Memorial Hospital money. And Guam Memorial Hospital wanted his land. You owe us money, your property has value, give us your land. And the other lawyers sent me survey maps and told me left and right that his property, he's not living on his property, blah, 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 blah. I went out and I looked. His shack with his pig pen right next door to his shack was inside his meets and bounds. There was no question if you went out and looked, smelled, touched it, wandered around, what you had. And when I came back to the other attorney, he said, I've been out there. You can hire a surveyor, you can do what you want. He showed me the meets and bounds. So he hired a surveyor, they went out, and lo and behold, his shack and his property was where he was occupying. Look at it, smell it, touch it. Before you start saying 77 demerits, an F score, that's okay. We'll give you another year. So that was the main reason I come before you tonight. I do have a secondary reason. As we talk about certified teachers, as we talk about how we've hired this many and that many, I represent a subpopulation. And that subpopulation is children with disabilities. And the question that or the position I would put forward is, children with disabilities this summer did not have, at least in one school, a certified resource room teacher. There may have been more that did not have certified special ed teachers. Let's ask the real questions. How many resource room teachers do you have? How many resource room classrooms do you have? And if the numbers don't match, something's wrong. Thank you very much, Senator, for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Attorney Summerfleck. I don't know, Superintendent Swanson, are you able to answer that question about the certified resource room teachers? Or Ms. Rabata?
I have to bring my expert witness. He's working this issue right now.
My apologies, I didn't, Tom Babauta, Assistant Superintendent of Special Education. I wasn't prepared for those numbers because we have a moving target. I do know how many positions out in the schools that we have that we're currently recruiting for. I'm not sure if that would be enough to help you, but currently at the elementary level, we have 3 resource room teachers that we're short. On the secondary, 7, and in special programs, we have 11. But I want to note that there's a nationwide shortage of special education teachers, and all states and territories are reporting this. So if you just do a quick Google search, you'll see that. So this is not something that is unique to Guam. So totally recognize and understand the requirements. Special education teachers are very unique and very special, but in some of the cases, we have been able to provide some coverage with the oversight of special education teachers and coaches that are going in and working with general ed teachers. And this is an acceptable practice. It's not ideal, but it is acceptable. So, you know, and I do want to address, we do have a mechanism in special education if people have concerns regarding the actual implementation of our IDEA law, that, and Mr. Summerfleck is well aware of this, that there are mechanisms for parents to come forward and come forward with complaints, file due process. You know, so there are mechanisms that we have in place that we address these things on a day-to-day basis.
So maybe just for a little background, could you explain what a resource room is and the impact that having a shortage of 21 resource room teachers has on the delivery of special education to special education students?
Sure. So we need to look at the totality of the school environment. So we have general education classrooms, and then we have special education classrooms. But we also have many students that are integrated into the general education programming. We call that mainstreaming, and that's kind of the ideal, that we want to get as many of our students integrated in with their same age peers and doing the same kinds of activities, same classes with some little tweaks. With our special classrooms, where the focus is primarily on particular subject matter, that's where that specially designed instruction that's more intensive takes place, and it's designed so that there's a catch-up with always the intention of getting out to the general mainstream. So any shortage of teachers, whether it's the resource room classroom or the gen ed classroom, is obviously going to impact the students in their progression. But the administrators and the teachers out there have been doing a really great job of finding ways to provide that coverage internally and address the unique needs in these educational plans. So, and I want to note, although those numbers of shortage of teachers is 21, I don't have exactly the number if they are special resource room classrooms where they're pull out and they're separate standalone versus just, so some schools will have a teacher that focuses just on reading, and they'll be integrated into on the secondary level, for instance. So I can get those numbers to you by tomorrow morning.
Yeah, please do. I'm just worried about how do we mitigate? I mean, you said people are covering, but with 11 and shortage in the programs and 10 resource room teachers, I guess at the schools, how do students, if they're at a school that doesn't have a resource room teacher, what happens then?
So this is where the specialty, I'm glad you brought this up. So this is where our folks from central office, whether it be the CNI coaches or the special education coaches, and these are some of the folks with the teaching degrees and certificates that are working out of central, go in and provide that consultation one-on-one with the teachers so that we can apply that specially designed instruction. So there's more than one way to address the unique needs. Again, it's not always having a teacher right there in front of them that has that specially designed instruction training. We can come in and build the capacity with the coaches. And in addition, many of the people are leaving the profession because they're not feeling supported, and that is the model with the coaching. That's why we go out there with our coaches to provide that technical assistance and that support. So I know it's a chicken and egg kind of a situation. We get criticized for having coaches out in central office, but at the same time, if we don't have these coaches that go in and provide the support at the school level, then we see high burnout rates and we see people leaving the profession, faster than usual. And that's not just on Guam, I'm talking in general across the country.
And this just goes back to the thing I keep bringing up where, if we don't have resource room teachers or certified teachers out at the schools, then whoever's certified at Central better get their dogging out to that school and fill that chair. That's what, coaches sounds great, but I think in our government a lot of times we try to be fancy when we're not meeting the basic needs. So I guess just from my perspective, it's if we don't have a certified teacher in that classroom or a certified SPED teacher, a resource room teacher, it's not about putting a warm body in there. It's about utilizing those people who are qualified and maybe moving them out of that role if that's possible and fill the need at the school level. Because for me, the benefits got to be delivered at the school level to the students who need it.
So it's a little more complex. I agree with you to an extent. It's a very complex situation. And this model has been around for a long time. So you have to remember, we also have personnel rules and regulations and protections. So it's not as simple as, okay, you go here. We do have some employee rights, and folks are not in the classroom because they applied for positions that were downtown. So this is where, as we look at the system and we're reevaluating the system, we're looking at ways where we can be more efficient and improve. But I'll give you an example. I came here one day and I shared with you all these changes and moves, and the next time I came in, you were critical about some of the changes and some of the moves, right? Which were directed towards getting folks into the classroom. So, you know, it's not as simple as something we could take care of in 2 questions, you know, so I'd be open to sitting down with you and giving you a better idea of, you know, the day-to-day struggles and how we provide that coverage at the school level.
I mean, Mr. Babauta, you know, I'm okay with like making changes and moves, but when the information coming to the committee is that we're still short, then of course I'm going to be critical of the changes and the moves, and that's it, because we're getting sued. We're getting sued for violating the Adequate Education Act. We're getting sued because we're not putting certified teachers in the classroom, and so I think, you know, we can wiggle around what our actual responsibility is, but we're currently in court because we're not meeting these mandates. And for me, that's all that matters. And I think that's all that matters, is delivering the best educational or special educational product to the students that need it. These parents don't care about personnel rules and regs. All we care about is making sure that we're not in a position. I mean, first of all, what I care about is we're delivering the education to the kids that need it. So, you know, second of all, of course, we don't want to be sued.
We used to have a program. I talked to you your second day in office. I said, hey, we used to have a teacher core program. I said, this is one way we could do that. I gave you multiple things that we're doing to try to bring back the BS program. We only have a master's program now at UOG. I've been working with UOG, but if we don't get the funding, if we don't get the teachers, we don't get the programming. So I'm saying, as a community, let's get together and support and help us to get some of these teachers in here. We're looking at ways where we can go recruit off island in the Philippines, for instance, and looking at all these. So we're trying to be creative, but at the same time, we have a national shortage. And what do we have to offer bringing people over here? Who wants to work in a system that every day you open the paper and it's all negative, and we're not going to pay you that much, and it's a high cost of living? So, you know, we need to look at the totality of the system, and let's all get in here and work on that. It's really simple to say, hey, you know, you have a couple people down there downtown. You've not asked me what are their roles. You've not asked me how is it built into the grant, because these are positions that are there for a reason. It's based on a grant, you know. So those are the things that, you know, I'd really like to see where we come together. And on the first day we had a roundtable, and, you know, shared with you a bunch of different things. It'd be nice to say, well, let's look at expanding those kind of programs, and how can we get together and work on that. So that's kind of what I'm asking. And, you know, we come down here every month, we report out, get scolded, get chewed out, and then where do we go? So I'm just saying, you know, if we get some programs together, you know, you help us get more teachers in the classroom, that would be where we do the root cause analysis. Why do we have a shortage of teachers? And why, and why, and why? And then let's go ahead and put resources into that program. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, yeah. And I don't really view it as getting chewed out. I mean, you know, it's not always going to be rainbows and sunshine. I mean, there are obviously many challenges we're facing in the department. And, you know, we're here every month, and I keep hearing the same thing. So it is what it is, Mr. Babauta, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, thank you very much. Just on the closing, I did want to address Mr. Summerfleck's concerns about the compliance timeline. So yes, I came into office last year, and we passed a law that basically said public health, you got to inspect all the schools, no more pieces of paper, get out there, look at the schools, use your the compliance guidelines. I just want to preface this by saying that Attorney Summerfleck was right. These school sanitation and safety guidelines were passed in 2019, and GDOE was given a 5-year timeline to come into compliance with these sanitation and safety guidelines from public health. And you know, it's my estimation coming from the media that they did little to nothing to prepare for that, and then it became an emergent situation where here we were a year before. There were indications made. The Lieutenant Governor come out with a big press release that said he was going to use the whole of GovGuam to fix the schools. And so I stuck my finger in the air and looked at that. That's great. We're going to have the whole of GovGuam working to fix the schools. Let's go fix them now. Let's get rid of the rats. Let's get rid of the mold. And instead, you know, the administration fought me on it. They said it was impossible. But here we are a year later, and we have schools that are meeting the sanitation and safety guidelines. Obviously, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done. But I believe that we have in law everything that the Guam Department of Education and the Department of Public Health and Social Services needs to continue moving forward. The variance, I think, Mr. Superintendent, I know that you have applied for variances, and it's my belief that what we have in the law allows DOE to have the construction done and to have those areas that are under construction, and we've seen this at different schools where you're taping off areas that are condemned. To me, if it's condemned or it's under construction, it doesn't really matter. The point is that it's taped off, and when you do that and you have that agreement with public health, they don't inspect that part of the school. They inspect everything else, and then you can pass inspection. So I believe we need to keep moving forward. I don't support lowering the standard. I think that you have the ability through existing law to continue to operate the schools and to get them inspected with the use of the variances. And so we'll have another sit down on this. But Attorney Summerfleck is right to raise these concerns. And I think the reason why we haven't heard much about it from this committee, at least, is because I believe that everything's in place for you to continue to move forward and to be inspected no matter what's construction's happening at the school. And then also this bill that Attorney Summerfleck is referencing is Bill 317. The committee will conduct a hearing on that bill next week, Wednesday. So I look forward to everyone providing a testimony. And then what this bill would do it would do something I think you already have the ability to do, and that's give you the authority to continue operating schools that are pending inspection. And I'm not supportive of giving you the authority to continue operating schools that have failed inspection. But, you know, that's a conversation again for next week. And so that being said, at 7:48, I'd like to call this hearing to a close. Hold on. And you can continue to provide written statements, testimony on this public hearing on any of the agenda items within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office on the second floor of the Guam Congress Building at 163 Chalan Santa Papa in Aganya. You may also send your statements to us at malafunction@guamlegislature.org. That's MALAFUNKSHUN at guamlegislature.org. Again, thank you, Superintendent, and your management team, and as well as you, Attorney Summerfleck, for your participation. This oversight hearing of the Guam Department of Education is hereby concluded at 7:49 Chamorro Standard Time. Guahu si Senador Chris Malafunction Barnett. Hasta adios.